think for a moment I'm over the hill, 'cause I am older, or because I've been ill. Life has been filled with bumps in the road, but I've learned how to face them and carry that load.
Welcome back. Jerry was the resident of a senior apartment complex where he had moved after his wife died 5 years ago. Jerry was very active in his Masonic lodge, where he enjoyed close friendships he had had for many years. He was a longtime supporter of Shriners Children's Hospitals and had been one of the state's leading fundraisers for the last 5 years, even at nearly 90 years old. Jerry enjoyed keeping in shape by daily walking the trail near his apartment. One day he noticed some discomfort in his knee, so he made an appointment with his new doctor. The doctor laughed at him when he described the difficulty with his knee. "My gosh, at 90 I hope you have your affairs in order. A knee that hurts should be nothing you worry about." He laughed as he hurried to see his next patient. Jerry was devastated. He had been fully living life, giving back, thriving, but his doctor seemed to imply his death should be expected soon, or at least Jerry should be worried. He sat in the lobby of his apartment complex, staring into the space. He quit going to his Masonic activities. Within a month, he had quit eating very much. In 2 months, he was isolating in his apartment. Jerry wasn't ill, he just had given up hope. It wasn't because he had a terminal diagnosis, but because an insensitive physician had planted worry and a sense of hopelessness in Jerry's mind. This true story became a self-fulfilling prophecy as Jerry died 4 months after visiting his physician. The only diagnosis? Failure to thrive. Jerry deserved medical care that was restorative, care that helped him maintain the active and contributing life he was enjoying. Instead, he was exposed to a thoughtless, hurried physician making an inappropriate ageist joke. Jerry's experience makes sense when we begin to understand the way the mind and the body are connected. There is a famous study conducted by a Harvard researcher in psychobiology, Dr. Ellen Langer, called the counterclockwise study. For this research, she took a group of men in their 70s and 80s to a retreat center. They were asked to imagine they were 20 years younger and act the part. The retreat center decor, newspapers, television, food, and other supplies were what one would have found 20 years earlier, as if it were the present time. When the men arrived at the retreat center, they were struggling to get around and to even get their luggage into the retreat center. At the end of 5 days, they were in the yard playing tag football. Amazingly, testing showed they had experienced improvement in strength, flexibility, endurance, vision, hearing, memory, and thought processing. Evaluation of the men's pictures by an outside group rated their after pictures as looking younger, brighter, and more resilient. All they had done was imagine they were 20 years younger and then to act the part.
The mind and the body work together in ways we are just beginning to understand. Roman emperor and philosopher Marcus Aurelius is known for the phrase, "Your life is what your thoughts make it." What he meant is that while external circumstances are real, how we mentally frame and respond to them is within our control, allowing us to alter our perspective and find greater inner peace and resilience, even in the face of hardship. Those thoughts create chemicals that impact our physical health in both positive and negative ways.
Betsy applied these principles in her life. She and her husband Bob had been married over 50 years. They were looking forward to extensive travel and relocating to the sunny South when they retired. Unfortunately, before they could begin their plan, Bob had a stroke and ended up with limited ability to communicate clearly and to easily move around. They could have become totally distraught and focused on all of Bob's problems and all they had lost. Betsy, though, realized they had a choice. Instead of focusing on all they were now unable to do, they made a new plan. Both Betsy and Bob were dedicated environmentalists who believed it was their responsibility to care for the earth, the air, and all of its creatures. If they couldn't travel themselves, they could help the travels of others. Butterflies are incredible cross-pollinators. Pesticides and overdevelopment have put these vital creatures at risk. By developing a butterfly sanctuary, they were able to create a safe spot for migrating butterflies and a safe environment for the caterpillars that would grow a cocoon and emerge as butterflies to continue the process. In spite of his communication difficulty, Bob enjoyed showing people around the sanctuary as Betsy educated them on the critical role butterflies play in the life of our food chain. Instead of focusing on all they had lost and their inability to attend sporting events they had hoped to enjoy, they made football Saturdays, holidays, and even baseball games into a fun time to dress up, have people over, enjoy snacks, and celebrate life. Betsy and Bob not only had a full and meaningful life, just not what they were originally targeting. Bob also improved significantly more than medical personnel predicted he would, living out a full and normal life expectancy.
I have power to reclaim all my dreams. I have power far more than it seems. Power to take what is broken and fulfill all the dreams that I've spoken. I am running the race, and I'll soon reach my goal of living a life that is full and made whole.
Life is filled with bumps in the road. When we accept the notion of old age, we can let the bumps turn into major barriers. When we see a period of potential empowered elderhood, we see the bigger picture, recognizing that we have faced hard things before and have gotten past them. Perhaps we have changed, but we are still empowered, knowing our life is what our thoughts make it.
Aristotle believed that the good life required living with a higher purpose. Just focusing on yourself and your problems takes you down. You can solve your challenges while still looking beyond them to something greater than yourself. Jerry had long focused on helping the children in Shriners hospitals. That focus was the driving motivation to keep going and to make a difference. When he took his eyes off his purpose, he became depressed, disengaged, and ultimately simply gave up hope.
Cornell University researchers report a growing body of evidence that as people have a greater sense of purpose for their lives, the result is less inflammation when faced with stress, lower risk of heart disease and stroke, lower cognitive decline with advanced age, greater longevity, improved perseverance, resilience, and mood, more ability to adapt to setbacks. It is vitally important to let those things you have found to be important to you and have placed on your vision board to still drive your life, regardless of the bumps in the road you face. Pay particular attention to those things that give your life purpose as you do for others and give back. Kathleen, Bruce, Bill, Carol, Morris, Marilyn, and Betsy all faced major bumps in the road, but they kept going as they kept their eyes on helping others in some way. As a result, they were able to reclaim an empowered elderhood in spite of serious challenges they faced. Your life strategy may need to include leaving your home. However, if your plan is clear and the focus is upon what is most important to you, your decisions will not be driven by fear or haste. You'll find that you will indeed carry out your plan and thrive. For example, here is Betty's story. Betty was a beloved teacher who taught in her community for over 40 years. She never married. For the last 10 years, Betty lived with her older sister Joanne, who had become a widow. They lived in a little cottage on the outskirts of town. 4 years ago, Joanne was diagnosed with breast cancer. Betty took care of her until she died. Alone and without Joanne to care for, and as a companion, Betty felt lost. She knew she was going to need to make some changes, but she also knew it was a mistake to rush into anything. Betty wanted to reclaim an empowered elderhood, so she made a vision board to capture the things that were really important to her, now that she was in a position to potentially redesign the rest of her life. She realized she really missed working with kids and would like to find a way to help them in the future. The companionship of her Sunday school class had sustained her during Joanne's illness and was very important to her. Betty was an accomplished seamstress, and she wanted to be able to continue to sew special things for family and friends. She had a very special cat, Casey, who was her constant companion. Betty also hoped to improve her computer skills in order to be able to better communicate with her nephews who lived in Colorado. Being able to easily get out in nature was also important to her. Betty loved the trees, flowers, squirrels, and birds around their cottage. Betty chose words of encouragement for herself that reminded her to take her time figuring everything out, to not feel like she had to quickly make changes. She added the messages to her vision board. Slow and steady wins the race. Aesop. It's hard to beat a person who never gives up. Babe Ruth. Courage means to keep making forward progress while you still feel afraid. Joyce Meyer. It's not about success as much as it is about making progress. Tony Robbins. Betty didn't want to have to continue worrying about the leaking roof on the cottage or keeping the lawn mown. She was aware that she had quit eating well, simply grabbing easy snacks now that she was no longer preparing meals for Joanne. She was having trouble moving around very easily and didn't know if anything could be done to help improve her stiff knees and hips. Truth be known, she worried a little about her safety getting in and out of the bath. With all this in mind, Betty decided she wanted to investigate the possibility of some type of senior living in her community. She looked at many of their websites and found that a number of them seemed superficial. Because she was not in a hurry, Betty started out by looking at the mission statement and purpose of each facility, trying to see if they were committed to creating a setting where older adults could continue to grow and thrive, or if they simply looked like a place renting apartments and providing amenities. If she were going to move, she needed a place for a sewing room that could also accommodate guests on occasion. Ideally, there would be a transportation system she could use beyond medical appointments and the grocery store. If she was going to move, it had to be to a place surrounded by trees, flowers, and nature. Betty wasn't sure if she needed assisted living, but the idea of having someone stand by when she showered appealed to her. It would be helpful to have someone who could help her improve the functioning of her knees and hips to avoid greater trouble in the future. Ideally, the food would be good and there would be significant choices available, not a fixed menu. And of course, they had to welcome Casey. Betty was interested in finding a place that took elders seriously, a place truly invested in their developing and empowered elderhood, not a place with silly or superficial activities, or a place that clearly expected those who lived there to keep deteriorating, needing more and more care at an increasingly high cost. Ideally, she would find a site where their assisted living was accredited in bounce-back restorative care, helping residents to improve their resiliency and independence instead of deteriorating rapidly because they used custodial strategies. Betty gave herself plenty of time to try to find just the right fit, a place that would enable her to achieve her goals for an empowered elderhood. She read reviews, talked to people in the community, and then selected 3 to visit. After her visits, it was clear the place that was ideal for her. Carolina Farms Senior Living was on a large plot of land with a view of lush hills and meadows. They had a huge community garden and even raised chickens for fresh eggs. The apartment she liked looked out on beautiful trees. It had 2 bedrooms, so she could create a sewing room. 2 people she used to teach with lived there and confirmed a number of stimulating things the community was involved with, some resident-initiated and led, some inspired by the staff, but all of them for intelligent adults, not superficial things for old people. Staff assistants could be contracted and provided in her apartment, so if she wanted someone to help make sure she was safe in the shower, that was a possibility. Even better, because they were part of the Senior Bounce Back Restorative Care Project, staff were trained to help her become more independent and safe in being able to shower, getting stronger and better, not more dependent. In-house therapy could also help protect her independence. A year later, if you drop into Carolina Farms, you will find Betty thriving, living an empowered elderhood. She and the other former teachers have created a doll hospital in Betty's sewing room. On Saturdays, they reserve the transportation van to visit yard sales and purchase heavily loved dolls. They refurbish them and make them new clothes, then provide them to 2 local agencies as birthday gifts for little girls in foster care. With a number of other residents, they have also created an after-school tutoring program for kids nearby who want a snack and help with their homework or just companionship after school while they wait for their parents to get home. Betty's knees and hips are much stronger now after receiving therapy. The bounce-back strategies she has mastered have enabled her to once again be completely independent and feel safe showering. Friends from church pick her up each Sunday, and she has remained active in her Sunday school. Betty's cat, Casey, is still a regular supervisor of all that is going on in the sewing room and likes watching the birds out the window. Betty has enjoyed having nutritious meal choices she did not have to prepare. A class the community offers on being computer savvy has made communicating with those in Colorado fun and frequent. And you? You have a lifetime of experience and wisdom. Life ahead is what you make of it. Regardless of what others say or think, remember, you are not over the hill.
I have power to reclaim all my dreams. I have power far more than it seems. Power to take what is broken and fulfill all the dreams that I've spoken. I am